Now, the talk and the presentation of Professor Peter Schwarz, Chair of the International Diabetes Federation.
Salam alaikum. Dear Inas, dear chairmen, dear director of the medical syndicate from Egypt, I must say it's not only a pleasure for me, it's a great honor for me to be here today. It's, I think, my 20th or 21st time to be in Egypt, and as I arrived yesterday very late, it was in some instances feeling like coming home. And why I am saying coming home, it's because of the enthusiasm and the passion I always recognize of the people working in diabetes care here in Egypt. And who is this? This is you. Being here, having the discussion about new developments in diabetes care, translating it into how to improve the quality of diabetes care for our patients. The moment just now is somehow we could say actually emotional for the International Diabetes Federation, because there are two important announcements, and I can only do these announcements here in this room because of the people being here in this room. And the one is that a few hours ago, the International Diabetes Federation, the board has announced that Inas Schalthut will be the chairman of a working group for the prevention of obesity and diabetes in adolescents. Why have we chosen this? Because this is a topic which is not addressed in the medical sector in the moment. Talking about adolescents, talking about the rise of obesity, the rise of prevalence of diabetes in this clientele. And during the transition from puberty to be an adult, we often miss the need of those patients or those people with diabetes. And the second announcement is, and this also only works because it's here in the room, this is Professor Mohammed Hassanein. The board of the International Diabetes Federation has a few hours ago announced that Professor Mohammed Hassanein will be the chairman of a working group on fasting and diabetes, because this is one of the new, I would say not challenges, but new opportunities if you are talking about diabetes care. And dear Inas, from my side, a very, very big thank you very much for not only the achievements, for doing it, doing diabetes education, focusing on so many conferences, so many educational curricula you have developed, and not doing it only once, doing it 20 times, and this speaks about a person. There are few heroes of diabetes care for me in the world, and in different regions, these are different personalities. And so Inas Schalthut and Mohammed Hassanein are two of the main heroes of diabetes care here from the region. But actually, I just made a mistake, because they are maybe the frontiers. And who is then the hero? The hero are you. You are doing diabetes care, sitting in front of the patient, talking to the patient, discussing treatment, thinking about changing management of diabetes, thinking about new approaches, how to better improve the quality of diabetes care for the patient. So the heroes are you, but there are two very special heroes, or maybe frontiers in diabetes care. About myself, Peter Schwarz, Professor for Prevention Care of Diabetes at the University of Dresden, and I'm the president of the International Diabetes Federation. And actually, this is wrong, because normally I should not stay here, because the term for the presidency of the International Diabetes Federation until April was for Professor Akhtar Hussain, originally coming from Bangladesh, then living in Norway and in Brazil. And he suddenly died on his mission at a congress in Brazil, talking about the need for people with diabetes and obesity, and after the talk he went to the social room and died. So overnight I took over the presidencyship, and for the next 2.5 years this will be a very, very intensive period to think about how we can strategically focus the International Diabetes Federation on those things, what are really the challenges today. And we are excellent in diabetes care. We are not excellent in addressing the dramatic changes in diabetes care which we experience in the upcoming 10 to 20 years. And this is what these conferences are about, to discuss, to prepare ourselves to cope with this. The current situation is a challenge. 540 people on Facebook on this slide, all the red ones will develop diabetes. Is this a lot? It's difficult to say. Yeah, this represents a prevalence of about 8 to 9%. So it's not so high. Prevalence of diabetes is higher here in Egypt. It's higher here in the region. It's much, much higher if you go, for example, to Saudi Arabia. Every second person you meet in Saudi Arabia on the street has already diabetes. And the age pyramid is opposite to ours. So 2/3 of the population is an age of below 35 years of age. So from a public health and health economic point of view, this is an enormous challenge for the country. It's not only about treating diabetes, it's also about how to cope with the expenses of a healthcare system for the disease and all its comorbidities. But there's also a lot of hope on this slide, and these are the green ones. The green ones have the same behavior than the red ones. So if they walk through the door, they are obese, they are maybe, I apologize for saying is, they are female, take anti-contraceptive pill, eat a tiramisu, and drink a glass of white wine. I apologize for the white wine. But this is a typical behavior in Europe, but this combination of the three aspects is the one-way road to accumulate fatty liver disease. And fatty liver disease, not to the extent what they think today. If you do an ultrasound, it's 350 grams. 100 grams of fat in the liver, it's less than in my hand, makes you becoming a non-responder for physical activity. So imagine what we tell our patient, physical activity is important, walking is important, but the fat destroys this story and makes a vicious cycle in a negative way to contract diabetes. But these green ones have all this and never develop diabetes. So they have something protecting them from diabetes. And we all know them. Some people say these are the healthy obese. Yeah, there are obese people who have a very perfect insulin sensitivity and never get diabetes. So how to identify them? There are more than 58 research groups in the world working on to identify a setup. Today we don't know. Today we have to wait. But we are physicians, we are scientists, and we say we have to understand health determinants for diabetes. And we believe, we all know them. Diabetes is not such a difficult disease, it's glucose only. It's not. If you think at this slide, it's the development of prevalence of diabetes in the world. The gray bar is the prevalence in the 80s, the blue bar, the increase in prevalence by the increase of population, makes sense. The yellow one and the rosé one is the increase in prevalence due to the change of lifestyle all over the world. So 70% of the added increase of prevalence is due to the lifestyle changes in the last 20 to 30 years. Why is this interesting? Because also the opposite works. If we would address this lifestyle aspect, we maybe are able to reverse this development of prevalence and incidence of diabetes. But it still means we have to understand better where diabetes is coming from. And if you look at this slide, you may say this is the increase of prevalence of diabetes in the next 10 years. It is not. It is the air pollution in relation to the increase of prevalence of diabetes. So now you can say, what is he talking about, air pollution and diabetes? If you go out of the hotel and you find a good German diesel car and you stand 5 minutes behind the diesel engine if the car is running and you take 2 deep breaths, medium-sized particles out of the diesel engine, you can find 2 weeks later in the insulin-producing beta cell. This is, from a research point of view, this is fantastic. Is it harmful? We don't know. If you try this in a cell culture, it impairs insulin secretion by 30%. So this would be a very strong health determinant. So air pollution, but only a special size of the particles, could become a health determinant for the development of diabetes in the upcoming years. There's only a little research done in the moment, but there's a lot of research coming up. What does it mean? Politicians have to act if you think about air pollution. It's not only diabetes, you also find it in the brain, you also find it in the liver. So air pollution may become a strong determinant for chronic comorbidities for our patients. But for me, this means prevention, then prevention, and afterwards prevention again is what we should do, because we understand the pathophysiology of the development of the disease, and only early prevention is a successful strategy to cure or to cope with the prevalence of the disease. And these are 2 numbers where I would say These are cool strategies for prevention. If we would walk 10,000 steps from the age of 22 or 25, we would not contract any chronic disease. Not only diabetes, many other diseases. Unfortunately, we didn't start it at the age of 22 to do this. But physical activity is a very, very good strategy against chronic diseases. It's actually getting better. Imagine you have diabetes, and it doesn't matter how much you are walking per day. If you only increase by 1,000 steps per day, it's walking 600 meters. If you go from here to the lobby and come back, it's about 350 meters. So it's not difficult, 1,000 steps. It lowers the postprandial blood sugar by 1.2 millimole. It's twice as much as 1,000 milligram of metformin are doing. So walking 1,000 steps is equitable to 2,000 milligram of metformin, we could assume, if we would do it, if our patient would do it, if we would be a good example to our patient by doing it ourselves. Unfortunately, we don't do it. We are made to walk 36 to 39,000 steps a day. This is how our body, our muscles, our bones are made. This is the average step count of people in Germany. Maybe it's much better in Egypt. If I'm honest, I don't believe. Yeah, it's in most of the countries, it's not better like this. There are no country, except maybe in Norway or Finland, where physical activity is higher. We are a lazy species. And this is part of our problem. If we analyze Europe, the last 100 years, interestingly, we are not eating more calorie than about 100 years ago. The quality of the food is going down, what we are eating. But what is going down tremendously is the amount of physical activity. We are today physical active about 22% of what we have done 100 years ago. And this is totally logic for me, that we must get sick if we are not using this ability anymore. And if I ask the question the other way around, how many hours per day we are physically inactive, this is the answer. We are lazy. We are a lazy species and should think about addressing this. But forget about it. Pathophysiology, we are physicians, we are scientists, and we have to understand this. This is healthy. Yeah? Young women, high normal A1C, CGM curve. This slide is about 8-10 years ago, as we started a lot using the sensors. And the purple line is glucose. The green arrows means she's eating something. She's always eating. She's doing actually everything wrong, what you can do wrong in terms of diabetes management. But the purple line is totally flat. There's no variation of glucose. This woman is very insulin sensitive. So she needs about 1% of the insulin to regulate blood sugar. Here's her father. It's truly her father. 50% same genetic background. Actually, the father has a better A1C than the daughter because the father is eating less carbs. But look at the curve. At the morning, in the evening, it's the same, but then there are fluctuation of the curve. And this up and down of glucose is the driver of the development of diabetes. This person is not having a diabetes yet, even if it has phases of intermediate hyperglycemia on the slide. The difference to the daughter is that the father needs about 80% of the insulin the pancreas can produce to regulate blood sugar. He's still able to regulate blood sugar, but he's, some people would call it pre-diabetes, what he is having. It may take another 3 years to develop hyperglycemia, another maybe 10, 15 years until he's diagnosed with diabetes mellitus. This would be the right moment to act, to make a difference for this person to prevent diabetes from development. But unfortunately, we don't find these people. We cannot give a sensor for testing or for screening to everyone. Not today. We will be able to do it in 3 years from now. I'm very optimistic that in 5 years, we will have sensors for less than $1 for 2 weeks. And this will change our views on diabetes, because in the past we have tested far too many sick people and we didn't test enough healthy individuals to understand the pathophysiology better. But what is the ultimate consequence out of it? We have to treat diabetes in a way to reduce the fluctuation of glucose. Imagine you have two people, both have an A1C of 7. One has mild fluctuation of glucose, the other one has big ones. The one with a big one will die because of a stroke and a heart attack. The one with a small fluctuation may not even need a treatment. It's a hypothesis, but it could be the consequence out of it. And this will maybe even disruptively change our approaches in doing diabetes care. Again, deeper into it, pathophysiology of diabetes, this is what is driving us. The red curve is glucose, the blue curve is the development of insulin resistance. All this is triggered by the development of visceral obesity, and because the visceral fat secretes more than 800 known peptide hormones, and they make diabetes, hypertension, depression, dementia. If you have 4.8 kilogram of visceral fat, you get the dementia from Alzheimer type 17 years earlier than the average of the population. From scientific point of view, this is cool information. In terms of morbidity for the patient, it's very, very bad. And there's a new player, and this is the hepatic fat I already mentioned. And look where the hepatic fat is going up. This is at about this stage of 80% insulin resistance. This is about the stage of the further I showed you. So something related to pre-diabetes. And if the hepatic fat increases, there's no dynamic. It continuously goes up. And this is the danger of the interplay between hepatic and visceral fat. The visceral fat makes us sick. The hepatic fat is the catalyst of a fast progression to diabetes, and it's at the end the determinant for mortality of us. So the hepatic fat makes that we are dying earlier. Here diabetes starts, here we diagnose the disease, so we come far too late and should think about acting earlier to make a difference for our patient. This interplay between these two fat compartments is driving the morbidity and mortality of our patient. Here is the insulin signal transduction cascade. All the red substances come out of the hepatic fat or the visceral fat and block this process. You don't need to understand more than this picture to understand the development of insulin resistance, the driving force behind diabetes. And this is a common solve for, I would say, any chronic disease we are facing today, except infectious diseases. But there are, and the COVID has shown us, having diabetes, having insulin resistance, having pre-diabetes makes you susceptible for infectious diseases, and probably this is a model which will arise over the future. I love this slide. And it's, at the end, very easy to understand. If you only look to the left side, there are people, NAFLD is a synonym for liver fat, and NAFLD is actually a high amount of liver fat. And the people are separated between having liver fat and not having liver fat. And it's insulin resistance or insulin sensitivity shown. And then the people are separated by being obese or slim. And you see the obese people without having liver fat have a better insulin sensitivity than the slim person but having a little liver fat. And again, we all know these people. They come to us, they have type 2 diabetes, and we ask why they don't have risk factors, and the risk factor is their liver. And this is very good information. This is actually very hopeful, because 7 years ago, we would have said, if the fat is in the liver, we cannot do anything about it. And then Taylor came a few years ago, and he tested and said, okay, if fat is in the liver, it's also in the pancreas. It's the same metabolism. And this destroys beta cell function. But interestingly, also the opposite works. If we remove the fat out of the liver, we also remove it out of the pancreas, and we may restore beta cell function. In animal models, this leads to remission of type 2 diabetes. So diabetes is gone. How to remove the fat out of the liver? We may ask a surgeon to remove the liver, but this would be the end of the life for our patient. How to get the fat out of the liver? It's very simple. And you know much better than I know, it's fasting. If you fast for 2 weeks without eating any kilocalorie, so nothing related to Ramadan or anything, 0 kilocalorie. Water diet. It's actually a word Mohammed Hassanain mentioned, water diet. Drinking water, not eating kilocalorie. You remove, and in many cases, abolish totally the fat in the pancreas and the liver. And why? If you imagine you have low glucose and low insulin, what happens? Glucagon is released. What is glucagon doing? Breaking down glycogen in the liver. So after 3-4 days, the glycogen stores are empty. Yeah, but you still have a lot of glucagon. And glucagon is a much more sexy hormone compared to insulin. And it has the ability to break down proteins to make glucose out of it, or to break down fat to make ketones out of it. So if you now are in this situation, glucagon would prefer breaking down proteins because it's contains a less or needs less energy. So if you fast and you are physically active, you use your muscle, and the muscle which is used is not broken down. So then glucagon breaks down fat. Where is glucagon? In the pancreas and in the liver. And that's why these two organs are cleaned up from fat first. And this is very interesting, very cool information. But we have to understand where it's coming from. So whom of you likes to drink Coca-Cola? Or who likes to drink Diet Coke? It's better to stop. 380,000 patient years on this slide. And it's shown if you drink one soft drink per day over a period of a year, what it does with your diabetes risk. Water seems to be healthy. Orange juice, 40%. Coca-Cola, I apologize for using a name. Once I did this and the CEO of Coca-Cola was in the room. Cola, 40%. But if you drink a Diet Coke, it's 60%. How can this be that the cola without sugar is making more diabetes than the cola where there's sugar in? And it's the artificial sweetener. Because if you exceed a certain threshold of artificial sweetener per day, it changes your microbiome. There are 38 artificial sweeteners available, 36 do the changes of the microbiome. And this is not a problem, because also there are 13 different bacteria invading our gut, and they still help us to digest. But what they are doing is they produce metabolites, and these metabolites are fatty acids, which are highly saturated. And these fatty acids, where are they? They are in our gut. And together with the fat from the tiramisu we are eating, we incorporate them, and because we cannot metabolize them, where do we store them? In the liver. So this makes us getting fatty liver disease. And this is part of the problem, and it's a part of a rising problem. Another challenge we are addressing currently is the development of digitalization. Every one of us is using a smartphone, but are we using this for diabetes care in the moment? And we do not. And there is an enormous potential, what is far going beyond what every one of the big pharma companies are doing. Why? My dream is, or the IDF's dream is, to be in the pocket of every diabetes patient in the world. 550 million people with diabetes. And I would say 530 million of them have a smartphone. Not everyone. There are people we may not reach. But developing a strategy using the smartphone, like you are using it now in the moment to make a photo, using this as a delivery channel to reach the people. We may reach the people in Egypt who don't have the money to go to the pharmacy or to a physician, but have a smartphone. Is it worth to do it? Here you see gray how all agents lower A1C, how lifestyle is lowering A1C, and blue how digital interventions lower A1C. And the last column are young digital interventions. What are young digital interventions? Are smartphone-based apps. And now you may say, oh no, this is crazy, Peter. You cannot say that a smartphone lowers A1C. It's impossible. Yes or no. We are in the pocket of our patient. We never have been so close to our patient than being in the pocket of our patient. Every one of us is taking 1,800 decisions a day. 450 are related to our lifestyle. Now, imagine we have the right motivational strategy with the right content in the right moment to set impulses to only influence 10 out of the 450 lifestyle-related decisions per day. But doing it through the period of a year, we may translate it to 10 kilograms of weight reduction. And this is an opportunity we are not using today, and we should address it. Why should not modern diabetology look like this? And there are good examples. This is in Germany, there are 48 digital therapeutics for diabetes care licensed and reimbursed by the healthcare system. This is one doing diabetes education for people out of the pocket between the physician visit, steered by the physician. Using AI you can make photos from your food, and this information is used not to blame you, but to help you to improve the next meal. There are others where you even can quantify and qualify what you are eating, and this is used for an intervention. There are apps using glucose sensors and using the information of a sensor to target nutritional coaching for the patient based on the evaluation of glucose sensor. This is a Swedish development. This is a diabetology out of the pocket of the patient, because there are 6 areas of diabetes care. This data are compared to a swarm of 1,000 patients using sensors and this app and tracking their daily life. So every patient is compared to this swarm, and then the patient is getting a very clear recommendation. Today, 6:35, you should inject 22 units of long-acting insulin. So this is diabetology out of the pocket of the patient. And now we say, no, we don't want this. It's stealing our patient. Think about Rwanda, 360,000 patients with type 2 diabetes and 1 diabetologist. So there are areas in the world where this would be extremely beneficial to be implemented, and neural network technology, open and multi-language models can help us to change the way how we deliver diabetes care in the future. And to disrupt this totally, we could ask ourselves, do we have to measure glucose for diagnosis of diabetes? We would say, of course, yes. A1C and fluctuation. I just see there's a timer, and I'm too late. Oh, I apologize. I will be very fast now. Think about who would be the best to diagnose diabetes? We would say it's our lab. It is not. It's our shopping behavior online at Amazon. Amazon identifies the start of hyperglycemia 3 months ahead of the start of hyperglycemia. Depression 4 months ahead of the start of depression. And now we said, no, he is totally crazy. We are not using this. It's not medicine. Why? It's also information we can use. And now imagine, Amazon identifies this information, or Meta, or Alphabet, or whoever, YouTube, and then they develop digital therapeutics to do diabetes management. And this is a point where I would say we don't want this. We want that the development of digital therapeutics is in our hand, that we are doing this, we are delivering. But I absolutely don't fear to use digital biomarkers to diagnose risks, to give it back, to show it back to the patient, use it for prevention or education, or at the end also for the therapy of our patient. And modern diabetology in the world may look like in the future like this, and this is something we absolutely should not fear. We should be the driver in the frontier behind it to do this. I will jump through I will show one slide. This is MRI imaging. And the cloudy stuff in the liver is fat in the liver. And this is before fasting. And this is after fasting for 2 weeks without eating any quinoa. I think this slide shows you why it is worth to do this. Mohamed Hassanein and his group will work on it. Finally, serving IDF for me means that we should fight, we should be the frontier, we should be the barrier against diabetes, but focusing on that every patient with diabetes in the world should have the same access and availability of diabetes care. And it is far not like this. A few weeks ago, I spoke to a young girl, 14 years old. She was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes as she was 11, and she got a can of petrol from her mother to burn herself because the family cannot afford the insulin. I spoke to a father of a type 1 child in Congo, and he told me every morning he has to decide spending the money he earns this day to buy the insulin or the food for the family. As long as these examples exist, we have not fulfilled our task in improving the quality of diabetes care worldwide. And I have only 3 goals. I want to be in the brain of every healthcare politician in the world. There are only 75,000 parliamentarians in the world. About 9,500 of them have diabetes. Secondly, I want to be in the pocket of every diabetes patient. And thirdly, I want to be in the heart of every healthcare professional treating people with diabetes. 1.2 million healthcare professionals in the world treat people with diabetes. How do we achieve this? The Global Diabetes Index. Once a year, we will ask 100,000 patients and physicians about their perception about the quality of diabetes care. We'll translate this into an index, release it free for World Diabetes Day, so that you as stakeholder in your country can go to the Minister of Health and talk to them and say, oh, we score at 65%, but our neighbor, it's 71. So we should do something to improve diabetes care. Maybe they ignore it. But then we come a year later, do the same analysis again, the same assessment again, and then you stay at 65, but the neighbor has improved to 74. So now there is a momentum to say, okay, now why have we not started a year ago to do something to change? Secondly, diabetes education out of the pocket of the patient. Who is in the pocket of every patient? It's Google, it's Meta, it's Alphabet, it's YouTube. There's a lot of medical content out there, but this medical content is not qualified. So using this technology to reach people where they are, to provide them diabetes education for free, even if they cannot go to a physician, Yeah, I know that this is, for some of us, it might be a bit challenging, but there are many regions in the world where there are no physicians who are able to treat diabetes. Diabetes education is the key where we can leverage the outcome of our patient. Finally, I want to invite you. You are the warriors against diabetes. You are the heroes of diabetes care. And IDF will develop a global community of healthcare professionals to do exactly this. To do why you are here, we develop a fellowship program of the International Diabetes Federation. And if you are a fellow of the International Diabetes Federation, you get all the diabetes education from the IDF School of Diabetes for free. We also want to attract students already to do this, but start from the basics of diabetes care up to the AI-based programming of AID systems with various algorithms for people with type 1 diabetes. And the IDF school develops in the moment very fast, and we will launch this fellowship program in about 4 weeks in India. And it will look like this, that we are looking for 100,000 colleagues in the world who say, I have a passion for diabetes, I become fellow of the International Diabetes Federation, and I hope you become fellow of the International Diabetes Federation, then a group of senior fellows and honorary fellows. If you scan this QR code, you come to this page, and on this page, you can leave your email address, and then you get an invitation in mid-November if the fellowship program starts. And I hope that you will then register to become fellow of the International Diabetes Federation. Here you see the QR code again, and several social media links. Please go to one of them, Peter Schwarz for IDF on Instagram, or the WhatsApp channel, or on LinkedIn, because this is the way I want to witness the activities, what we are doing, and inform about new development and new challenges of the International Diabetes Federation. My passion is looking at all these faces of people with diabetes, and finally, with the activity of IDF, putting a smile on these faces of people with diabetes. So let's work all together with our intuition, our passion, the learnings from this Congress here in Cairo, and finally help our patient to walk away from diabetes. Thank you very much. Shukran.
Thank you very much, Peter. Very passionate presentation, as usual, for the mission of IDF for the next 2.5 years or almost 3 years. And hopefully it will continue thereafter with good policies and plans for the long term. So thank you all speakers. I think we completed the opening session, and we look forward to the rest of the scientific program for the conference.